stay with water issues, though, and the Johannesburg residents not the only ones affected by maintenance. The city of Cape Town today started its 3-day maintenance work, which will affect over 20 areas in the metro. Let's speak now to University of Free State's Centre for Environmental Management, Professor Anthony Turton. Prof, good evening to you, and thank you very much for your time. On occasion, you warn that South Africa is slipping into a water crisis that could be difficult to extract ourselves out of. What is going on right now is a maintenance program by Rand Water. How important is that, juxtaposing it with that warning that you, on occasion, remind us about?
Yes, good evening to you and the listeners. I think the good news story is that the government of national unity, even though it's squabbling at the moment about who's going to be in charge of what, there is definitely a strong desire at technical level in the water sector to stabilize the situation. I was party to a high-level meeting just recently that established a task team to prevent the day zero happening in Gauteng. That was a very sobering meeting. I wrote about it in some of the media. It has drawn a lot of attention already. So I think the good news is that government is actually realizes that maintenance, the kind of maintenance you're seeing happening now, has to happen more and more in the future, but it has to be controlled maintenance, it has to be focused on specific issues, and it's got to be done to correct designs, and it's got to be done credibly. Remember the tankers, the tanker mafia, all of that's thundering on in the background. We can't lose sight of the fact that this crisis can also be hijacked by criminal elements. But let's take it at face value, and I think let us support Rand Water and let us support the Department of Water and Sanitation at the moment as they're trying to stabilise the situation and prevent literally a national level crisis from taking place.
All right. So this is a proactive step that is being undertaken by water authorities. However, there are major challenges that you have warned about. Talk to us about those. What for you stands out as being an imminent crisis when it comes to our water situation?
Yes, when it comes to our water situation, firstly, there's been an underspend on maintenance and expansion for the last 2 decades. That underspend is not going to be rectified in the next 10 years. I mean, we're talking about a long-term turnaround strategy here. In my view, I've been on the record many times with this particular view I'm going to share now. I think our biggest single challenge in South Africa is our wastewater crisis. Because South Africa is a water-constrained economy, we recycle all of our wastewater back into drinking water, but it first goes through rivers and dams. And because the wastewater treatment works are failing, the bulk water treatment plant like Rand Water and those places is now increasingly having to deal with heavily sewage contaminated water coming into their systems, and they were never engineered to do it. So we have to simply get that under control. And I think the other thing that is an absolute crisis now is the large amount of leaking pipes in the system for unaccounted for water that is causing a substantial cash flow crisis in almost all municipalities. That has to be stabilized in the very near future. And of course, on top of that, you've also got the situation that because of the economic slowdown, the fiscus is unable to pay for all of these things, even though some of the municipalities are sending back unspent money because of lack of capacity. So the financing of these things, these upgrades, is an increasingly complex issue. And all of these are being dealt with in that very high-level task team that I spoke about, or that I wrote about the other day.
Yeah. You also talk, Professor Turton, about mobilizing ingenuity in order to solve these problems. What are you referring to there?
Yes, we have to start thinking differently about the problems for a number of technical reasons. I think we've reached the limit of our, let's call it the central planning paradigm, where all wastewater goes into sewers and ends up in a wastewater treatment works, and then is just discharged into a river or into the ocean. We need look no further than Cape Town, seeing as you mentioned Cape Town. I mean, Cape Town's got a very serious sewage crisis. There's a growing public backlash against the discharge of untreated or at best partially treated sewage into the ocean. So this is happening in South Africa at the moment. But if we look further afield, we see that in England right now, Britain has got exactly the same crisis. There's a major sewage crisis playing out in Britain, even as we speak right now. But this is also happening in other parts of the world. So yes, it's a serious issue in South Africa, but it's actually a global issue as well. So what I think is happening now is we're reaching the limits of our current ingenuity in terms of the current design parameters. And we simply have to start looking at other solutions, and there are many of them that are coming out, that are on the horizon. And this starts mobilizing interest in things like venture capital, financing for these alternative technologies that are coming out. Some of them aren't yet fully proven, but there's a lot of innovative thinking taking place in the water sector right now.
Can I latch on to that very point you've made, Professor, about the untreated water, essentially sewage, seeping into the ocean? You say that the problem is much deeper in Cape Town. How more pronounced is it in KZN? Because there, we know as a result of the flooding in recent years, that has caused infrastructure to almost collapse and, again, unable to prevent that seepage into the sea.
Without any question of doubt, we need look no further than Umhlanga. The Umhlanga River has been heavily contaminated from the rioting that took place in 2021, when there was a chemical factory or chemical storage facility that burnt down, and the firefighters, in putting the flames out, washed all of these chemicals into the river and ultimately the ocean. Human beings are producing huge, highly toxic chemicals at an alarming rate. And those chemicals, some of them are so-called forever chemicals. Once they're out in the environment, they simply don't go away. And while many of these chemicals are highly toxic, they come in the form of pesticides used in agriculture, but some of them are also just used in everyday products and, of course, in medications. So at planetary level, at global level right now, we are being inundated by the fact that we've produced so many chemicals, some hundreds of thousands of different chemical compounds that have been produced, many of which are enduring, all of which end up in our wastewater system some way or other. And it's the combined impact of all of those that is starting to challenge the human ingenuity now. And our human ingenuity is going to come down to a big question we're going to have to ask ourselves. Are we going to continue being smart and building these great big multi-billion rand sewage treatment plants, or are we going to start embracing nature, so-called nature-based solutions and engineering solutions in partnership with nature? I'm busy writing a piece about that at the moment, and that goes into the details, of what I think we should be looking at our universities, our research institutions, our venture capital people, that have the capacity to invest in these new emerging technologies, in these new startup companies, etc., that are developing these technologies. So this is the direction I think we're going to have to go as a nation, but not only a nation, as a species. I think that's where we're going to have to go.
Yeah. Prof, I can't let you go without without talking to you about, yes, there is haggling right now over who should get what position in this government of national unity. In recent months, the minister that's been in charge of water and sanitation, Senzo Mchunu, receiving a lot of credit for taking action and also not being politically correct. In other words, being firm where he needs to be. Do you think that if he were replaced, that would set us back in any way? Or you think that whoever comes in must just pick up from where he left off?
Well, I think what Minister Mchunu has done, I've got a very close professional relationship with him and his entire top team. Because what he's done is he's recognized that the Department of Water and Sanitation is in crisis, and he started stabilizing it some time ago. So that's not just a recent thing. He's been building this for a while. So through his leadership, he appointed a very credible Director General. The current DG is a highly credible person. And that DG has built an executive team within the department that is very, very credible as well. So I don't know who's going to take over as minister, but I would think that it would be in the national best interest not to fiddle too much with that top management team at this moment in time, as they are firmly in the saddle. In fact, it is that team that's driving this crisis intervention at the moment. So in my mind, if new rooms don't always necessarily sweep cleaner, sometimes they can be catastrophic. And given the importance of this matter at strategic level, I would say let's keep the team intact as far as we possibly can. Remember, water is an economic enabler, and one of the big challenges that the Government of National Unity will have going forward, besides keeping itself together, which is going to be a challenge in its own right, but the other big challenge is how do they create jobs? How do they create jobs, but rapid creation of sustainable jobs? And you can't do that without restoring investor confidence, without attracting capital back into the country. And you can't attract capital back into the country if you don't have stable water and energy systems. So water and energy, those two things, I think, are of critical importance. And I would say that those places should be left to technically competent people. They should not be politicized. In fact, on the contrary, I think we should depoliticize those as far as we possibly can. Just let the technical people get on with doing what they have to do and working with whoever can actually provide the necessary service.
Professor Anthony Turton is with the Free State University's Centre for Environmental Management.